We're born to walk and we're born to sprint. But we are not born to run metronomically at 8-minute, 9-minute, 10-minute mile pace day in and day out. That is completely antithetical to health. Our ancestors would never have done that. If you look at the country today, 75% of people are overweight or obese. To think that they're going to start running as part of a weight loss strategy or a longevity plan, it's a horrible misuse of their energy and their psyche. The running boom of the last 50 years has been, it's been a miserable failure for most people.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabby Reece. I'm a retired professional volleyball player and co-founder of XPT Fitness and Laird Superfoods. On this podcast, we interview experts about all kinds of things, whether it's the latest in health and fitness or personal care and growth, so you can maximize performance in all areas of your busy life. And today I'm talking with New York Times bestselling author and a friend of mine and the founder of Primal Kitchen Foods, Mark Sisson. Mark has been influencing not only the nutrition, but also the fitness industry for several decades now. It shows. This guy looks so vital and so healthy. In addition to his work in nutrition, Mark is a dynamic athlete. He finished fourth in the Ironman World Championship and was slated to take part in the Olympic trial, but a medical ailment forced him to withdraw. I mean, he gets into how hard endurance athletes are on their bodies. So through successes and challenges, Mark has continued to push his body and his mind, sharing those insights in books such as The Primal Blueprint and his website, The Daily Apple. He used to have a blog called, Mark's Daily Apple. He's been at it a long time. And in this conversation, we discuss Mark's own personal health journey and how our culture has really overcorrected when it comes to vilifying fat and has gotten it wrong, maybe even pushing over exercising. There are too many great insights to list. I love Mark. I respect him so much. And let's get right into the conversation. Mark Sisson.
Gabby.
Oh, I was so excited to see you. It's funny. Getting ready for this conversation and just kind of being reminded of not only all of the things you've done and all of the people you've been, and how one of the things it always shows up is like, you just follow what you really like. And your success has really been a reflection of that. And I think sometimes it's not that people overthink it, but especially when you talk about entrepreneurship, it's sort of like nobody knows how to get started. Right.
I mean, I would say that's exactly right. My career path has taken so many left turns and pivots and U-turns, but always with an idea of what I wanted that day when I woke up. And to your point, I think liking what you do, you don't even have to love it, but if you like what you do and you're good at it and people want it and you recognize the value of it, as an entrepreneur, that's like, those are basic requirements. And from there, you can kind of, you can freewheel it the rest of your life. If you do it passionately enough, if you do it consistently enough, there'll be a time when it all makes sense. And it might only make sense in retrospect, right? You might only be able to connect the dots in arrears, but it will go. I mean, like, I never set out to be the Mayo King of Malibu, right? But that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. It's funny. I heard this quote, Denzel Washington. He said, the first half of your life is for learning. The middle is for earning. Mm-hmm. And then the last part, and obviously in a different way, is for returning. Right. And the way I translate that is more like being in of your service self and more in your wisdom. It doesn't mean you're getting ready to exit. But I think those things go part and parcel, where it's like you get a little bit of wisdom. So, as somebody who's really in this space, because this is something I'm always juggling, I'm really interested in the science and the nitty gritty. Mm-hmm. But I feel like health has so little to do with that in a certain way. And now we live in a time where everybody knows everything, but they don't really have this practice in place. And you're a person who lives it. We were just talking about it earlier, where as fit as you are and have always been, you really have a moderate attitude about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, there was a time when I was, a dedicated endurance athlete, and my whole life was built around beating myself up every day in pursuit of a win.
I mean, you were like painting houses.
Yeah,
People don't realize that you were doing whatever it is you had to do so you could pursue the sport.
Right. Yeah, I was in a very labor-intensive trade, painting houses, monkeying up and down ladders all day long, and then going home and running 15 miles, or going to the track and doing 8 repeat miles at 4:45 to 4:50, and then getting up and doing it again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. But that was what in those days, before you could make any money as an athlete in an Olympic sport, you were not allowed to collect money. So I had to support myself. I didn't have a sponsor. I didn't have, anything to pay for my living expenses. So I had a job. I was a contractor and proud of it. And I would argue that the contracting part of that contributed to my fitness and to my mental strength. Again, to be able to work hard all day for 8 hours under the sun and then go home and instead of sitting back with 3 beers and waiting for tomorrow to roll around, lace up the shoes and go out and run 15 or 20 miles.
Why didn't you run, most of us are too exhausted at the end of the day on something like that? Because we always talk about training. I go, listen, whenever you can get it in is better than not getting it in. But for me personally, if I don't get it in the morning, I'm too mentally and physically tired to really get it in at the end of the day.
Right.
So you never were going to swap it and do it early?
Just didn't work. It was too, I would say, not dangerous, but again, because of the nature of the work I was doing, I couldn't go, up on a ladder 3 stories up, reach out to the eave of a house with one hand and then a paintbrush in the other hand and try and get that last little corner of the window trim with any sort of confidence that my legs weren't going to give out if I just run 20 miles that morning. It was easier to do it at the end of the day. Now, today, I have to get my workout done in the morning or else there's no way I do it at the end of the day. But it's a different dynamic now for me.
Right, because you're using your executive skills and sort of some other and familial obligations and desires.
Yes. So
if you weren't really getting paid, I can relate to it a little bit with beach volleyball because it was such a kind of small platform. What was that pursuit giving you that it was worth it to you to do that? Because that's a lot of not only time commitment, but there's a physical toll
huge.
that you pay.
Yeah, a huge toll. And it, I would say it got me to where I am today in all sorts of different iterations, which include the mental and the spiritual aspect of how I look at life. But what drove me, it's I think a lot of endurance athletes in particular, I would say it's some insecurity. I was a small, I was too small to play football or basketball or baseball or hockey. I grew up in Maine. I ran to school as a means of transportation. I think I could actually beat the bus, the 2 miles to and from school. So I'm like, why am I going to sit on the bus when I can get home and do whatever I need to do quicker by running? And, I was whipped mercilessly by towels in PE class by, seniors and all of the athletes. And so I would say that part of what happened was when I went out for track my freshman year in high school, and I won the mile and the 2 mile pretty much at every meet, and occasionally the pole vault. And you go, how the hell did that happen? But I had been a gymnast before that, and so I had a little bit of that skill. And the next thing you know, I'm the high point man on the track team. So I got the accolades. I got the ego stroke of being a top athlete, and just sort of, I think, fell into that headspace of, okay, I'm willing to do the work, I'm willing to hurt, to prove, I don't know, to myself, to my father, to my, my friends who bullied me, that, I'm good enough to, compete at life. It's if you look into the psyche of a lot of endurance athletes, there's a lot going on there because, endurance athletes are not having fun. You played volleyball and you busted your ass, but you had fun.
Totally.
You totally had fun. You ask any elite athlete, how often are you having fun when you're out running 10 miles or 20 miles or competing in a race, and all you're doing is managing discomfort. And the nature of that game is how much better can you manage your discomfort than the other athletes around you who are also being uncomfortable. And you wind up, if you're an elite athlete, you wind up just digging a huge hole for yourself and dragging everybody else into it with you and hope that you spit them out the back end.
Right.
It's a perverse sort of approach to what should be a fun activity, which, we should be playing more. We should be having fun in our lives. We should be, and that's obviously informed the last 3 decades of my career. It's like, how can I have fun? Riding a fat bike on the sand with people, a mountain bike with Laird, going on a hike, not a run, but a hike in nature, stand-up paddling, seeing dolphins and whales, and playing ultimate frisbee with my son and completing a long pass to the end zone that he catches. I mean, that's exercise as play, as fun.
Yeah. So when you think back to the endurance athlete, the mark that was there something besides obviously taking a physical toll with your heart, with other things? Did something actually heal in you? So you could say, all right, well, I'm limited because of this damage I've done, so I've got to kind of taper back on that. But was there also any kind of healing or something that occurred that the Mark that sits here now looks back and thinks, that poor Mark over there, like what he was going through, whether it's this proving, the worthiness, whatever. What really for you, when you look back on that, you go, oh, I'm so different in this place over here?
Well, I do know that when I retired from competition, it took me 5 years to stop training that hard. So even though I wasn't competing, I still felt the need. I was jonesing to go beat myself up in workouts. And that manifested itself as I was a coach. I coached a professional triathlon team for a couple of years after I stopped competing. So it took 5 years to get that mojo out of my system. And I think it certainly served me well in business, right? Business is often about being uncomfortable and managing discomfort. And so, tell me a business story that doesn't have a lot of discomfort and ups and downs and roller coaster and all of that. So the life training that provided was probably beneficial. But I also recognize, like every once in a while, I think I'll go run a mile. And I'll put on the shoes and I get 200 yards down the road and I'm like, the fuck am I doing? I have no interest in this, and I will walk home. I've done that enough over the years that it's been 10 years since I did that, but I haven't run a mile in 30 years. I've done a lot of stuff and I stay fit, but I haven't run a mile for the sake of running for 30 years. And I'm definitely happier. I'm definitely healthier, and I'm probably as fit, just general overall fitness, as when I was one of the top runners in the country. So there's something to be said for the lessons learned while you're doing it, and then making sure that you take those lessons and apply them later on, but not getting so caught up in that headspace that becomes the definition of who you are for the rest of your life. So when I left that behind, and I kept thinking, I watch these guys at 60 years old, and I learned this from Wildman. Yeah. I could go kick their ass. I know I could start training again, and then I'd I couldn't get into the space again. It was such. It's almost indescribable what it takes to get yourself up every day and do it again. I mean, you know Goggins, right? And I mean, God bless him, but the head space to force yourself to get up and be uncomfortable physically every single day takes a toll on every other part of your life. And whether it's your own psyche or whether it's your family who has to suffer as a result of you riding 100 miles on Saturday instead of going to the soccer game, or not cuddling in bed on a Sunday morning with your significant other because you still got that run that you have to do. All those things, they all play into what makes a complete life. And if you get so myopic and so tunnel vision because you've set this goal for yourself and you want to achieve it. I'm not against having goals, but be careful what the how you balance that in your life. I'm all about feeling good in the moment. So that dictates everything I do. So I don't do the wearables. I don't do, I don't track the macros. I know intuitively, but all I care about really is how do I feel? Do I feel good? Do I feel healthy? Do I feel strong? Do I feel good about who I am? Do I feel good about my relationships? And all of that is available to everyone. But now we're reading all these books on how to live longer and all of the, and how to hydrate based on your body weight every 15 minutes, or all that matters is VO2 max, and that's the number one thing we have to strive for. And I'm like, not really. And even if you get the at the end of the day, all that matters is how do you feel.
Yeah, but what I see from you that you do very, very organically is you know how to go. Your scale, maybe if your scales get off, you seem like somebody who you right the tips of the wings pretty quickly. So it feels like, which I find fascinating because as somebody who, I've known you for over 20 years, and I can remember when you were writing articles for the internet more than 20 years ago, Mark's Daily Apple. And I thought, oh, that's interesting and novel and kind of cute. And that led you to an entire new chapter of your life. So talk about that. Your kids were younger then. And once the opportunity for even like Primal Kitchen arrived, kind of out of that Primal Blueprint and all of that part of the business that, again, I don't want to say by accident, but once you realize like, oh, I'm interested in this space and now I can fill this space, then you went for it. What's the balance like at that time when you're in that heavy of pursuit with being a father and a husband?
It was always of paramount importance that I spend time with the family and with the kids. So I don't think I had the DNA to be an 80-hour-a-week entrepreneur and grinding it out a la, Gary Vee or whoever else the gurus are now.
Guru, my favorite word.
Yeah. So in terms of pivots, like I had started a vitamin company when I was, I forget, in my 40s, and I was married and I had 2 kids and I had no money, 0 money in the bank. And I started a vitamin company and I was going to sell to athletes. And I found out quickly that athletes, they only want to be sponsored. They don't want to pay for stuff.
Right.
At least in those days. So I pivoted and I wound up finding this TV show that I could go on and I could pitch my very high potency multivitamin, multi-mineral, antioxidant products to an emerging anti-aging crowd that happened to be older women who were at home watching TV at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and you're cute, so they didn't mind.
So I grew my business in Malibu. I would fly to Dallas every 2 weeks for almost 10 years and do these 2 TV shows. And my business grew and grew and grew. And it was great. I was like living large and very successful. And then one day the model stopped working. Now by 2004, there were 300 cable stations because Dish and Direct were just coming on. The internet was a thing. So people were buying online. They weren't necessarily calling an 800 number. Operators are standing by.
Did you have an upsell? Did you have other thing that you were selling?
No, my upsell was, I sold my vitamins on these TV shows, and the upsell was auto ship. So before they called it continuity and subscription, it was just called auto ship. And so I built a great business doing that. But then as that model fell apart and the TV show went away, the one that I was sponsoring, I did a year of my own TV show. I shot a 52 half-hour episodes of a show called Responsible Health. Built a set down at Golden West College. Had a 3-camera crew back when producing television was wickedly expensive. Bought time on Travel Channel, so I had a health talk show every morning at 8:30 on Travel Channel. In 93 million homes. But I guarantee you not more than 1,500 people were watching at any one time. Because if you look at the distribution of who watches TV at 8:30 in the morning.
Right.
80% of people are not watching TV at 8:30 in the morning, and of the 20 remaining, they're watching ABC, CBS, NBC, or Fox. And by the time you parse it down, there's nobody left. So in 2005, I thought, I'm going to start a blog, and that's what started Mark's Daily Apple. Was my desire to talk about health, which I'd been doing for the previous 10 years on these TV shows, and not be as censored as I was on the TV, and to say, give some of my contrarian views, which, by the way, now are mainstream in many cases. But that was another pivot, and so I pivoted to do this blog, and I had high hopes for it, and it didn't immediately take off. It took years to take off, and then within a few years, it was like the leading health blog in what we call the ancestral health space.
Yeah, you got early real estate too, because you seem to be ahead on things. You've been down. You said no money. You've been up, and I'd say you have had a real win with Primal Kitchen. A lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, but just living in life, we go through these ups and downs. I mean, you have kids. It's like you go through a lot of ups and downs. Do you have a practice, or what is it within you that you manage them? Because you do have a little bit of a sparkle in your eye these last few years, because I know you're enjoying your kids, your grandchildren. So there's a little bit of that. Yeah. But you don't actually seem that different from me, like when it's maybe not going as well as you want and when it's going great. What is that in you? Where do you go? What's your practice that you kind of maintain that sort of level of attitude towards life? Well, part of it is the training, the managing discomfort of an endurance athlete. As an example, in a marathoning is just so brutal and tough. I wrote a whole book on it, and we're going to talk about that later. But and you can be going along feeling great, and all of a sudden, like the wheels fall off, and you feel like I have to fall back. I've got it. I can't keep the pace. My stomach is hurting, or I've got a stitch or a cramp. And my strategy used to be, the only way to address this is to pick up the pace. And because if you fall off, and then now you're going to be slogging it for the next 16 miles and continuously falling back. So that approach was to pick up the pace. Now that only worked twice in a race. You can't do that every single time, because it's an emotional and a mental like major area of like, I have to concentrate. I have to regroup. I have to find myself. So I've had that in business over the years, where there's a solution. I just need to find it. And then my wife has always had this mantra that she gathered through her spiritual psychology quest, and that is, this too shall pass. And I think that's one of those useful strategies to just keep the monkey chatter out of the problem and just go, okay, there's a solution to this. And another one is not losing sleep over it, which is the killer. Like, how do you do that? Yeah,
and
how
again,
do you do that?
And Carrie also said, she's like, well, first of all, if you're staying up late sleeping at night thinking about a problem, you either get up and fix it, because otherwise you can't do anything about it just thinking about it. And if it's still going to bother you, lay your head on the pillow sideways and let that thought drip out of your ear onto the pillow. It worked for me. So, and so then, because losing sleep is a critical part of being in business, right? I mean, it's like, it is endemic in entrepreneurs. Yeah. So, but what I didn't want to do was, I didn't want to forego the soccer practices, the soccer games, the boogie boarding at Zuma Beach, the snowboarding, teaching my kids how to snowboard by doing Chris Farley, down by the river, in a van down by the river. You know what I'm talking about? And thank God, because to this day, they're 33 and 30, and that's what they remember, is the time. Not the stuff, but the time. So that was just, and my parents got divorced when I was 15, and my siblings got the brunt of that, and it was not good. So I didn't, I just had part of me that just didn't want that to happen. So I was going to stay engaged with my kids and my wife, no matter what happened in terms of business. It just, luckily, the business, and when I say luckily the business, by the way, I started in, I was 43 when I started Primal Blueprint, Primal Nutrition. And, I didn't make money until 47 or 48, and it was enough. But, Primal Kitchen I started when I was 61.
I know.
So this is what I tell young entrepreneurs: don't rack your brain trying to, get your Lambo and your house in Beverly Hills by the time you're 27. Live your life, enjoy your life, because one of the worst things that can happen, and you see it a lot with wealthy entrepreneurs: grind, make money, first divorced, kids hate you, grind, second divorce, and then you finally make money. You say, okay, now I want to live my life. But everybody in your past is like, where were you when I needed you?
Yeah, Laird and I talk about that a lot, where it's like people also grinding it out to work and then retire at 65 to enjoy their life, but they're maybe not in good enough health to really take that on.
Yeah.
You talk about talking about health, writing about health, and also selling health. Why do you get a kick out of that? Because you could be healthy alone and just kind of take care of it for yourself and your immediate group. What is it in you that you get? What do you get from that?
I mean, I get sales of shoes. That was.
Why would you do that to yourself? Oh my gosh! Do you really? Is that really
Shopify? Yeah.
Is that Paloova digging up?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that, but
no, I love it. But
part of who I am now. I shifted my, what was the question?
What do you when you share your knowledge and kind of not only the patterns you've seen and the wisdom and it really shows up in this next book, Born to Walk. What do you get from it? What's the feeling you get?
I mean, the what they call psychic income from people coming up to me and saying, "You changed my life." It's the most powerful drug there is, and it started when I was, I don't know, I guess when I wrote my first book, Training and Racing. No, it was the Runner's World Triathlon Training Book, 1981. So going back, however many years that is, 43 years. People would say, "Oh my God, I learned so much from your book. Thank you for writing that." So then I started writing books, and people would say, "Look, help me race better, help me whatever." Well, with Mark's Daily Apple and the Primal Blueprint, now I'm literally saving lives. People would say, "I lost 100 pounds doing your program." I mean, that's how I met Rick Rubin. Mm-hmm. He came up and said, "Dude, I followed your program and it worked." And every day I walk through airports or I walk through life, and people come up and say, "I just want to say thank you." It's incredible. So that's what that only has to happen a couple times. You go, "Oh, I like this. This is, this is worth making a contribution or giving back," or whatever the term is that you want to describe it.
Yeah. Is there a person or persons that really, obviously you have people who trained you, coaches, but was there any persons that really influenced sort of not only the nutritional approach, but this kind of approach that you've been in for many, many years, which is the power of walking and moderate exercise versus just destroying yourself with really brutal, hard exercise?
Is there a person that...
Yeah, is there somebody that showed up, or has this just been all on your experience?
Yeah, it's all on experience. It really is just... people ask me all the time, would you, like, if you had it to do over again, would you do it differently? Like, could you go back with what you know about diet now, and would you, run better, or would you change your training? And I'm like, I mean, I could, but it was the not working out and the getting injured and retiring that got me to where I am now. It was the realization that I was doing it wrong and that no one else had figured it out yet on how to do it, not right, but better anyway, that sort of drove that for me.
Is it Laird talks a lot about, like, I want to hear less data and more experiences. you do have an interesting ability to trust yourself. You're a person who's like, well, this is what I'm seeing. And is it hard to sort of disseminate all the information and see what you're experiencing and feeling, and then being willing to put that out there to people and say like, yeah, no, I really think this is how it is? Because I think a lot of us have these feelings or opinions and we're really too afraid to say, well, I'm just going to tell you what my experience has been. Yeah. How has that been?
Well, Twitter's enabled people to do that sort of thing, right? You can just be a little bit more cavalier about your feelings and your opinions, and have to be willing to back it up, and you have to be willing to take on the haters. But I think social's allowed, given people like me an opportunity to say things that are maybe contrarian, and do it from just experience. I mean, the N equals 1, the experiment concept that started, again, 20 plus years ago that we first started talking about. You get enough anecdotes and you have data. So that's kind of what I look at is, and I don't want to say I've become an anti-science guy, but I haven't trusted the science as it is laid out for a long time. I'm very skeptical of, a study that says, if you do this, you reduce your risk of heart disease by 32%. And in the absence of any other variables like that, that's meaningless to me. And by the way, reducing my risk of heart disease by 32%, even that's meaningless. Does that mean that out of every 100 people, 32 are going to get have fewer events? I mean, what does it even mean? Risk. All we talk about in health is risk factors. And risk factors are like, your risk is, of walking across the street and getting hit by a car. There's a risk of that, but it doesn't look at your life in totality. So I've been brash, I think, in some of the stuff I've said over the years, and proud of it. I mean, I haven't really backtracked on much, but
no.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
No, but I mean. No, I
mean, like I don't know, you do have the ability where it feels like you're not combative, but you're okay if somebody's not okay with it. It's really a great thing. Well,
so that's the thing is that I never said I have the way.
No.
I just said I have a way.
Yeah.
And I think, and based on my background, my opinion, my research, my experience, if you want to hear about my way, I'm happy to tell you about my way. And if you want to try it, I suspect there's a strong likelihood that it will serve you better than your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which brings me to, so you have a new book. It's a great and really comprehensive read, Born to Walk. So you've been talking about walking forever, to the point of, if people haven't seen Paloova, Peluva, your latest company, which I feel like in a different way you're passionate about than Primal Kitchen, which is so funny to me because, Primal Kitchen has been so wildly successful, but now you have this new baby that you are excited to share and put momentum behind. And it feels like created to encourage people to, sort of get their feet in a much better situation, position, to walk, to play, to do, to hike, to do all these things that we're talking about. We were talking about ones for, pickleball and such. So you have this new company. Oh, another, speaking of Paloova.
Sorry.
That's okay. We'll see how we go today. Why would you do it? Like, you could just retire, you could sort of enjoy your life and train and take trips. And like I stated earlier, you have grandkids and stuff. Why Paloova? Because it's like, hey, it didn't exist and no one's doing it, so I've got to do it.
Yes. And I'm still living my life. I'm still taking the trips. I spend 2 months in France every summer. I was in Hawaii with my grandchildren last week. I was there 2 months earlier. I take a family vacation every year. I'm still living my life. I'm just filling the spaces up with something that really interests me. And when I'm really passionate about foot health. I mean, I hated shoes as a runner. And I would argue that I got injured as a result of the footwear that I was using. And the orthotics that fixed one part of my problem and then just drove it up the kinetic chain to another part to where I couldn't train anymore. I couldn't train at an elite level anymore, and there's a big difference there. I was an early adopter of minimalist footwear. Going back to 2007, I had my closet was full of 5-toed shoes. I had them in different colors, different sizes, different shapes. I'd wear them to weddings and funerals, to the chagrin of the bride and the dead. So I was all in on the concept of foot health and contact with the ground. Like, our feet need to feel what's underneath, and every modern shoe basically negates all of that important haptic input. So yeah, I've been really passionate about creating a shoe that allows feet to be what they're supposed to be, our immediate and most important contact with the universe. Like 2 feet on the ground, everything starts from that. Whether you're getting up in the morning and shuffling down to get breakfast, or whether you're jumping in basketball or volleyball, whether you are playing golf and you want to set up for a shot, or whether you're setting up to hit a baseball, running, jumping, dancing, squatting. Everything we do relies on strong, healthy, resilient, mobile feet. And we screw it up because we put on these attractive, pointy shoes that then compress the big toe against the other toes, often render the little toe like useless and vestigial. Like, most people would be okay if they just cut their little toe off. They wouldn't notice any difference. But toes are supposed to splay out. They're supposed to contact the ground. You're supposed to, by the time you weight the front foot when you're taking a step barefoot, which is how we're designed, by the time you weight that front foot, the brain would have all the information it knows on exactly how to organize the kinetic chain. Now, you can say, well, I was born with flat feet or knock-kneed or bow-legged or wide hips. Everyone is born with a perfect kinetic chain, provided your brain has the information on how to organize your perfect kinetic chain. But if your brain tries to organize your kinetic chain based on a shoe that you bought that offsets the heel by 20 millimeters and then cants the arches out with increased arch support and scrunches the toes together with 4-foot motion control and all this other high-tech nonsense, you have created an appendage that's more like a club foot or a paw. And it's just incredible to me that this doesn't get more press and more attention. Like, foot health is the new sleep. We spent the last 10 years talking about how important sleep was. Okay, we get it. Let's move on. What's next? Foot health is the next big thing that we need to tackle. So that's been my real rallying cry and cause over the last 5 years since I started Paloova. It's like I want people with Primal Kitchen, I wanted to change the way the world eats. With Paloova, I want to change the way the world walks.
It's funny, we've been wearing your shoes for over a year, and Laird's been wearing them for pickleball and, just doing other activities. And it is interesting when you can feel the ground, you move. In a way, I'm less sore because I'm not just slamming my foot down.
Yeah.
Kind of putting my foot down, even though it's in an athletic way. What have you learned? And I almost felt like you were a little disenchanted. You just came from a show where the theme is people are still like more padding, more cushioning. Yeah. And these are people who are into running and, in this space.
Right.
So what do you think it is? I'm just curious. Is it the look? Is it because our brains are so used to seeing shoes as this one whole unit? What is it that's keeping people from either wearing these more or companies doing this more? What's holding them back?
I'm going to write a book about this one day because it's a really interesting story that starts with the first 5-toed shoe commercially made, because the 5-toed shoe actually goes back to 1976. But when Vibram made their first 5-toed shoe, and I was an early adopter, and it was a great thing. And then Chris McDougall wrote a book called Born to Run, and it sort of posited that humans are natural born runners and we should all be running barefoot. And so that prompted this whole movement of runners to go out and buy minimalist shoes and run on untrained feet. And so a lot of runners got injured because they'd been running in these cushioned, narrow, restrictive shoes, and the muscles, even though they're aerobically fit and their quads and their glutes worked reasonably well, the intrinsic muscles of their feet had not been worked. They'd been stuffed in or cast into these encased shoes. And so now you put on a barefoot shoe and you go out and run 7 miles the first day. It's no wonder your Achilles gets stretched. You get plantar fasciitis, you get a metatarsal fracture, whatever. You have to train your feet to be able to run barefoot.
So that means less distance first and maybe go into lower profiles. Don't just go full all the way out. How would you do that?
Well, so what we tell people with Paloova is the learnings from generation 1.0, first of the five-toed shoe, was don't run in these. Do everything else in these. Because when you run, the ballistic forces, first of all, most people don't have good running form. So they run, with a heel strike, and that lends itself to injuries. I mean, the book Born to Walk talks about all that goes wrong as a result of the forgiveness of modern running shoes. We tell people, look, walk all day in Paloovas, go to work in Paloovas, go to the gym in Paloovas, do squats, lunges, whatever you're doing, hike off-road, and we've got a Paloova style for every occasion, as you've seen.
Yeah.
Then, when it's time to run, if you want to run, go put on your running shoes. Or when it's time to play basketball, put on your basketball shoes. Because you will want the support and whatever cleats might provide. We have friends in NFL who are training in Paloovas, but then wear cleats, when they're playing. But foot health is, so what we do is we sell Paloovas in the running shoe stores as an adjunct to another arrow in your quiver, a tool in your toolbox for getting healthy feet. And then when it's time to run, put on your running shoes. So it's going to be a slow, an evolution, if you will, for our product to get into the general population. But people who understand the concept and who are using them are like, oh my God, I didn't realize my feet could feel this good, not be in pain all the time, that my bunions could actually resolve, that the plantar fasciitis that I thought was a result of, that needed to be rolled out with a lacrosse ball, wasn't lending itself to that. It's actually dead tissue from having cut off the circulation to the plantar fascia region by squishing the big toe over into the other ones in the name of fashion, if you will. So we're just really excited about what we can do with this shoe and with this footwear. And one of the reasons that other companies haven't gotten into this arena with five, there's been a lot who have wanted to, but there have been some restrictions that up until now prevented other people from getting into it.
What do you mean, like how to manufacture it?
No, just sort of legal issues that I can't talk about.
Okay,
but yeah.
Okay.
But
so if let's say I'm a woman and I'm listening to this and I go, hey, that's cool, but I go to an office every day and I need to wear a certain kind of outfit. You're just saying, hey, listen, on the other things that you're doing, and this goes back to that moderate attitude of yours.
Yeah.
And this feels really important because I think overall for health, it's not about all and nothing and kill yourself and never have and only eat and always do. It's like, hey, when you can, do these things that are better for you. It's
an 80-20 rule that has been around for a long time. But I first incorporated it into the Primal Blueprint when I wrote the Primal Blueprint. I'm like, if you can follow this template 80% of the time, you're well on your way to being where you need to be.
Yeah.
So the same with footwear. So if you're a woman who has to wear, I don't know, heels, I'm not even sure that many workplaces
require that. Probably
anymore.
Only like Condé Nast or something.
Yeah,
that was years ago.
And most of those women would be well served. And by the way, the Condé Nast women who were in New York could walk to work in our shoes and then change into their work shoes when they get there, which happens a lot now.
And that's I just bring that up because I think people go, oh, this is all too daunting, and the way you always approach things is like, hey, a little bit, and let's move in that direction. So you wrote Born to Walk to really explain to people what happens to your body and, when you run a lot or just run. And first of all, most people don't run well. I'm sure if you took me outside right now and said, okay, Gabby, let's check your gait and let's have you run, it's probably not great at this point.
So I can almost guarantee you that if we went to the track and I said, Gabby, sprint 40 meters, you'd have the best form you could possibly have. But if I said, let's go run a mile,
then it's going to fall apart.
It's going to fall apart. So when the name of the book is Born to Walk, and humans are born to walk.
Yes. Did I say born to run?
No, you didn't. You did good.
Okay.
Born to walk, and we're born to sprint. But we are not born to run metronomically at 8-minute, 9-minute, 10-minute mile pace day in and day out. That is completely antithetical to health. Our ancestors would never have done that. People have only run for recreation or fitness since 1970. Prior to that, the only people who ran prior to 1980 were runners. I was one. Like, if you saw somebody before 1970 or 1980 and you said, and they were overweight, and you said, hey, you want to go run? They're like, why? Why would I do that? So the running boom is basically this artificially constructed marketing media blitz that was prompted by Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman inventing the cushioned running shoe, which they did for their elite athletes who knew how to run. And then Bowerman wrote a book called Jogging because it seemed like jogging might be good for the heart, because Ken Cooper had written a book in 1968 called Aerobics, which suggested that the higher you kept your heart rate over a longer period of time, the longer it would confer longevity on you. So Cooper sort of started this whole thing, which he basically recanted about a decade later. He said, whoops, I didn't mean that much.
Yeah, pull back, everybody.
Pull back, everybody. So humans are born to walk. We populated the face of the planet walking. We walked. Our genetic recipe is that of requiring us to move at a low level of output, but continuously throughout the day. Why is that? Well, we have 2 feet. We're one of the few animals that have 2 feet. And so we have to move, and we have to have these, if we're not moving, we're doing these, what we call archetypical resting postures, like sitting cross-legged or sitting side saddle or sitting, squatting. Because again, before sofas and chairs, and we either walked, we crawled, we jumped, we climbed, we squatted. We did all these different positions, but the body requires that they do this, not just because we're only on 2 feet and we'd fall over. I mean, if we had 4 legs, we'd do what every animal does with 4 legs: stand or sleep, hang out. So,
isn't it almost like it's an engineering phenomenon that we can actually stand, basically?
Yeah, we're a Segway. We're basically a Segway.
It's so good.
How do we not fall over? How do we not fall over every time we take a step? Well, I'll tell you why. How? Feet. The feet they're like this amazing invention, this appendage that requires input. It's an incredible technological development of millions of years, hundreds of millions of years of evolution. And then we screw it up by putting on shoes and saying, I'll sit most of the time, or I'll sit at a desk, or I'll sit in a sofa, or whatever. So, there's every reason for us to be walking a lot, and not a lot of reasons for us to be running. So back to 1970, 1980. So the only people who should be running are runners. Now, what does that look like? Well, number one, ectomorph, right? Skinny. So you got to be light. You have to have good running form. You have to have good aerobic capacity, and you have to be willing to hurt. Yeah. That's what a runner is. And so people run. I mean, I was a runner, and I'm not going to negate my past, but most people are not runners. If you look at the country today, 75% of people are overweight or obese. Those are not ectomorphs, right? Those are heavy people. And so to think that they're going to start running as part of a weight loss strategy or a longevity plan, it's a horrible misuse of their energy and their psyche. So the running boom of the last 50 years has been a miserable failure for most people. They don't lose weight.
Okay, so maybe explain to people about where they end up living when they're actually running. It goes against this idea of quote, burning calories or losing weight.
Yeah. Well, so burning calories. So running burns calories for sure. But then there's this compensatory theory of exercise, which states that if you go run, which is a sort of a non-human activity, if you do it every single day, if you run every single day, like none of our ancestors, let's backtrack. So people would say, well, we were persistence hunters in our.
Yeah, you'd sprint for a second.
And you'd walk a lot, and you'd sprint, and for 2 hours you'd crouch and sprint and walk and jog and hide and sniff and track and do all these things. And 2 hours later, the beast is, and because we have a cooling system that was part of our evolution, we could then walk up and put a stick in it. So we have all of those inherent abilities. But to to run every single day was completely antithetical to any of our ancestors. Running, they didn't even run metronomically. They ran, again, like it's 7-minute mile pace, right?
Yeah, sure.
So to do that day in and day out is, and what happens with most people is they run harder than they should. They run at a heart rate that's slightly to overly stressful, which results in, you burn calories, but then you release a lot of cortisol. Cortisol is a fat storage hormone. It increases appetite. So now your body's going, we have to regain the calories that we lost in this life or death pursuit that we just engaged in, whether it was 30 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes. Over time, people who are not elite runners tend to shift. They might say, well, I haven't gained any weight when I've been running. Yeah, but you've lost muscle and you've gained fat. So we now have a skinny fat thing. You and I have seen a person running down PCH for years religiously.
There's something when I see her, for people listening, it's kind of almost amazing too, because she has a very long blonde,
Mm-hmm.
It must be like a wig or something. And she shuffle steps. And it's from one exact location to the other, mm-hmm. on the freeway, by the way.
Yeah.
Let's not suck car fumes, people, if you can help it.
Yeah.
If you can't, okay.
Yeah.
And I've seen her for close to
20 years.
Yeah, more.
Yeah.
25. And she looks exactly the same, but
more jiggly.
Yeah. Well, yeah. She is older.
No, but
yes. But it is a shuffle. It is, people don't realize that there's a sweet spot for kind of, if you wanted to be, burn calories, and usually we go above it when we run.
Right. Well, so again, how many calories are you going to burn in a run? If you burn 400 let's say your watch says you burn 600.
Yeah.
That lion sandwich. Typically, the brain, because people haven't learned how to burn fat, and this we talk a lot about this in the book.
Yeah.
Like there's a fat burning zone 2, which Peter Attia talks about.
Yeah.
We call it maximum aerobic function. We call it fat max zone. There's all sorts of names we give it, but it's at heart rate at which you burn mostly fat, and you haven't tapped into your glycogen stores yet. So you're optimizing your fat burning. But if you go above that heart rate,
right.
Now the amount of fat you burn drops off. The calories increase, but you're burning mostly carbohydrate, glycogen. Right. And the body does not like to lose glycogen, and so that's where the brain goes, we're going to eat more this afternoon, and we're going to, especially if the brain knows we're going to do it again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So over time, what we find is that running is catabolic. Running tears muscle tissue down, and walking is anabolic. At the very least, walking is anti-catabolic. So you can, like runners who are doing 30, 40 miles a week, which is kind of an average for some citizen runners, a lot of people feel like they have to take a nap later on in the day, or they feel kind of fried if they, if they run that much. Walking doesn't do that. Walking is energizing for most people.
It is very energizing.
So what we're trying to do is say, look, 50% of runners, of people who call themselves runners, are injured every year. And 25% of all runners are injured at any one point in time. So right now, today, all the people in the country that call themselves runners, 25% are injured. Mm-hmm. In what world is that considered healthful, a protocol for longevity, uplifting, in terms of spirit and energy otherwise? My goal with the book is, first of all, to tell people walking is the quintessential human movement. It's certainly in conjunction with lifting weights and a little bit of sprinting and some other stuff and play. But running does not serve most people as well as they might anticipate. And I'm giving runners now permission to walk. I'm saying, look, if you're a person who does a marathon and you're not breaking 3:45 for a marathon,
right?
You're not a runner. I'm just fine. It's like saying I'm a weightlifter. Well, what do you bench at the gym? I bench 105, 110. Well, you're a person who goes to the gym and lifts weights, but you're not a weightlifter, really. I mean,
right.
So only runners should run, and everybody else should walk. And if you want to become a runner, we talk in the book about how to get to the point where you've trained your body to burn fat, you've adapted your stride, your gait, to where you're landing with a midfoot strike and not a heel strike. Maybe through diet and other applications, you've lost enough weight that now you're not like dramatically and traumatically affecting your knees and hips. Okay, now we can talk about, let's go run.
Yeah.
But until then, it is antithetical to health to be running day in and day out when you think it's improving your weight loss, your longevity, and the rest of your health.
And you talked about cortisol, getting that extra release of that harmful hormone that really, it sort of works in a very specific way in our system. But then you even talk about in the book about how it can impact your mitochondrial health, mm-hmm. which I thought was, interesting, where, here's this thing that we've been told is so good for us. It's the first, I feel like lacing up your shoes is the first thing people do when they go, Monday, I'm starting my diet and my new routine. Mm-hmm. And you're saying, okay, pump the brakes, go start walking.
Start your diet, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, for somebody, you go take a walk. What does that mean? Is it 15 minutes? What's the pace? Is it 30?
Yeah.
Do you ever walk backwards?
I do. I love it. I mean, that's
Doesn't
part of...
Doesn't that make you feel good?
Yeah. No, I mean, Ben Patrick. Yeah.
I always give him props because it's almost like you're giving us permission to walk. He really gave an entire group permission to go backwards.
So I do treadmill 15 degrees with a weight vest on, and I do it 10 minutes, sometimes 15 if I get caught up in a podcast or something like that. And I do it without holding, you do it without holding the handrails. So there's a certain amount of balance and proprioception that's involved in this. It's its own form of training. So, but what does that look like? It looks like starting with just walking, but as you get good at walking, pick up the pace, or put on a weight vest, mm-hmm. or ruck, or go off road and walk trails. I want people to walk with minimalist footwear because I think, again, this is where it gets a little dicey, but I want you to walk, but I don't want you to walk in those thick padded cushioned shoes because it's just continuously reinforcing a bad gait, a bad G-A-I-T, a bad stride, a bad pattern. If you want to run, one of the ways that we look at doing this is, and I do this a lot in the hikes that I do, if I do them in Palouvas make me want to. I feel like I need to run with Palouvas.
Yeah, you're ready to go.
You're ready to go.
Yeah,
you feel that. Light on your feet, and so I'll hike a bit, and then I'll run 200 meters on a sandy part or a wooded part or whatever, and then hike again, but always with good form. So as soon as the form breaks down, stop and walk, and that's how people should be. I think incorporating running into their training is walk until you're rested and feel comfortable enough that you could run a little bit. Run, 10 strides, 100 strides, whatever it is for you, with good form, mm-hmm. until the form breaks down or until you're winded, and then walk again. We used to call this fartlek in the old days, where you
fartlek.
Fartlek. It's a Swedish word, F-A-R-T-L-E-K, fartlek.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, be clear we spell that right. And it was a common. That morphed into, high hit. It morphed into sort of like interval training, where we would sprint from a stop sign to a stop sign, and then walk 2 stop signs, and then sprint to the next one. But those are ways you can incorporate the walking and a little bit of running, and feel good about it, and make it be a game, and make it be sort of make it playful rather than metronomically slogging it out. And so many people who, again, call themselves runners and like they want to identify as a runner, but they're not really runners, and they don't even like it that much. They just like calling themselves runners or having done.
I went on a run. I did the
or I did a marathon.
Yeah.
The average finishing time for a marathon in this country is 4 hours and 35 minutes. That's the average finish time. So there are people doing 6 hours. I mean, right now I can walk you a 6 hour. You can walk a 6 hour marathon with me, no problem. So what is the now but you want to do it jogging up and down instead of just covering the ground?
I want you to see me running.
Yeah.
Do you talked about kind of people get this emotional kind I don't want to say addiction, but almost like obligation to running.
Mm-hmm. The obligate runner.
Yeah, you talked about this in the book. I thought that was really interesting.
Well, it's that's part of the psyche that goes with the decision to become uncomfortable in your workout, right? And you say, I'm going to do this thing that's not fun. In fact, it's so not fun, I'm going to wear headphones and listen to music every time I do it. In my entire career, I never wore headphones once. Of course, they hadn't been invented for most of it.
Right,
but
we had Walkman. Right.
The Walkman, the Sony Walkman.
What'd you do, think?
Yes. Oh, go.
Did you go inside?
Go figure. Totally go inside. That was the best and scariest part of being a runner, was going so deep that every once in a while, frequently, go for a 15-mile run, and from mile 5 to mile 10, you go. You at mile 10 you go, holy shit, how did I just get here from mile 5? Like, what happened? I don't remember any of that. I was deep, and that meant crossing streets and navigating traffic and stuff like that. So it was
well, just with the obligatory runner there, because you don't almost see that. You might see it in bikers a little bit, but you don't have somebody who's like, I have to go play basketball. They go because it's fun and they meet their friends and do whatever.
No, so the obligate runner then is one who they get really down on themselves if they get injured, or if they miss a day, or if they travel and they can't get. There's someone who unfortunately sacrifices family time and fun times with friends for getting the work done, getting the workout done. And it's one thing if you're an elite athlete competing to train, but if you're not going to win a race, or you don't have a shot at winning a race, why are you? And I get it. I was an Ironman, and I was just at Kona, a few weeks ago, and I could not. Going back to the first part of this conversation, I could not put myself in that space. I almost threw up standing on the Queen K Highway watching people run by going, God damn, that was me one day. And I cannot believe I chose to do that and grit it and really ground it out and gritted it out and did it. Now, I'm glad I did, but I'm glad I did it 40 years ago.
Yeah. Do you ever find, I'm sort of moving in these places. I feel like once you get to a certain age, you start to realize so much of the things we do when we're younger, they are so helpful. They metal us up. They get us stronger for whatever things we have to endure, whether it's in our work life or the ability to really be there for our families. But you realize also so much of it comes out of that thing that you were mentioning early. I'm going to show you, I'll prove you. It's very interesting when you see people that can then go to a place, and occasionally you'll meet a young person who does it already, and they really do the things that they want to do because that's what they want to do. Mm-hmm. I feel like so much of the beginning chapter of our life is to show everyone, hey, I can do this. And it's always so interesting when you can switch that mechanism. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what drives young people today to get out of bed. And
what do you mean?
Well, I don't want to project, my own feelings on other people, but I had a reason to get out of bed every day when I was in my teens and 20s, and I was like hit the ground running. We live in a different world now, and I think it's with all the devices and all of the distractions and all of the bullying or the sort of add in some of the woke stuff. It's like, I'm impressed when young people get their shit together now and say, I got a plan right now.
Do you have you seen, because you work with a lot of young people and your kids and stuff, do you see something that they've implemented in their life that helps them kind of hit the road running? Is it finding a place for all this distraction? Or because I agree with you, I'm always like, if I had to tackle that, I don't know if I could have done it.
Yeah. I mean, I think with my kids, both of them are really smart, and they're really aware, and they're really empathetic, and they watched me do what I did. So again, they were 3 and 6, or 2 and 5 when I started my companies, and I had nothing. So they watched it being made, and they watched and then they also appreciated the fact that I spent time with them. Now, I worked out of the house, so I didn't go to an office, and that was really important. I learned that from my dad. My father was an artist, a painter, and a very successful one eventually. But when we were growing up, he had a studio in the back of the house, and he would, when he wasn't selling paintings, he'd make jewelry, and my mother would make neckties, and they had a little gift shop, and they would sell stuff. I mean, it was really before Etsy.
Right.
It was Etsy before Etsy. But my work ethic was, part of this was going to do something at the back of the house every day, and that's what I've done pretty much my whole married life. I've worked out of the house. I've never had an office per se, and that allowed me to take breaks and see them in between, which you can't do if you go to an office and things like that. So, or to take a 2-hour break in the middle of the afternoon and go watch a soccer game and then come home and work some more. So I had so anyway, they saw that, and they have an appreciation such that my son, who's my co-founder and he's now the CEO of Paloova, he's very focused on the business, and he knows what it took to get there, and yet he's married, he spends time with his wife, and he takes Friday afternoons off and he plays golf with his buddies because that's important to him. Yeah. So.
Can you defer to him? Are you able for him to go, I think we need to go in this direction, and when you're not sure, you're able to defer?
Yeah. I'm almost to a fault. He would say I'm mentoring him, but I'm mentoring him in a way that's kind of throwing him into the deep end at times. Now, what he knows he gets from me is he gets the support and the financial backing, because I'm the financier of this, right? But he's been amazing in the decisions he's made and how he organizes meetings and how he conducts meetings, and his ability to listen and take stuff in and be thoughtful about his responses. It's everything I'd hoped it would be and more.
You said that your dad worked from the house, and you had some good examples there. Was there anything, because you are a person who, I appreciate your success in your business, but you have been married a very long time and you are very close to your children. For me personally, this is the example of success, those relationships. Because, we can all fake everybody, but we can't fake those people.
Right.
Is there something, so you had some great examples, but has something really shown up for you as a parent that has been a trait that maybe you didn't have that you learned? Like I've learned not to fix I've learned to listen more and not try to fix the problem and just sort of really be there. I had to not learn it, but I had to learn to keep my mouth shut. Was there something that you've really thought, oh wow, I'm so glad I added that to my parental approach?
Yeah. I mean, I think you probably described it accurately there. If you trust your kids are smart enough to watch, as long as you're leading by example, they'll get it. And I think a long time ago we had a discussion about eating disorders and kids, and in my case it was like not even getting involved, just standing back and letting stuff happen. There wasn't a horrible situation, but it was enough that one of my kids didn't want to hear my advice, and I'm like, okay, you know what I do, so it's not for lack of knowledge on my part. I'm going to let you make your own decisions based on the data that you've collected for yourself, and that sort of thing I think works And then if stuff goes off the rails, you're there to you're there to step in. But I do think giving kids enough leeway to make decisions, and even occasionally make, I wouldn't say a bad decision, but make decisions that don't serve them as well as they thought they might, is it's part of learning. Look, I mean, I talk about my generation. We grew up, and there were a helicopter parent. What the hell would that be? That they were like, get out of the house. It's 8:00 in the morning. What are you going to do? What are you doing home? And then don't come home until dinner time. And we would ride our bikes all over town and, build forts and discover stuff at the dump that we could make. I mean, it was like, it was, I would say, a magical childhood in that regard. And
you survived.
And I more than survived, learned from it and took, whatever lessons I could take from it. And I do have a problem now with, like when we moved to Santa Monica, when my daughter was 2, Santa Monica became too urban for us, and we didn't dare let our daughter walk down the sidewalk or down our entry sidewalk to the next door neighbor without somebody accompanying her. We had to move to Malibu and out into nature. And so I'm guilty of having done that. But once they were in Malibu, it was a whole different thing. Then they could go play in the backyard and leave the house and do all kinds of stuff that they couldn't do in the urban jungle that Santa Monica was.
Yeah. What's the experience of watching your kids be parents?
It's amazing. So my daughter has 2 kids, and I just watching her deal with her 5-year-old and 2.5-year-old in such a loving and nurturing and supportive way, without any sort of yelling and screaming, and all of which worked when I was growing up. Threatening and screaming and yelling. But she gets the kids are both very mindful, and she talks from day one. There was no baby talk. It was all as if they were real people that understood everything she was saying. And we did some of that with our kids, but it's amazing to watch the development of these 2 little beings. And you'll one day soon you'll find out it is the circle completing itself. The circle of life really completes when you have grandchildren, because now that you've passed your genes on to the next generation, and then they've done the same.
Right.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of questions about food and ingredients, and eating and grocery stores and things like that. And you're an expert. So lately we've heard cereal companies getting hammered. And do you feel optimistic, because you're one of the first brands that has had good ingredients and has been allowed to be successful on a bigger level? You're not just in the health food stores,
right?
So do you feel like this is a trend that are you hopeful for that, or do you think it's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors?
No, I'm very hopeful, because I think people like Vani,
the food babe, Vani Hari,
she's been militant about this for a long time.
I know.
And it's starting to be successful. I think our buddy RFK Jr., look, whether you love him or hate him, it needs a shakeup.
Well, sometimes for me, I'm just trying to be as common sense as possible. And people are so out of their minds about this, but I sort of go, hey, listen, because I've had people write me notes if I put anything up supportive about him, getting involved. It's like, hey, listen, it's not working. So let's try something else.
Yeah.
And I wonder, obviously I know it's sort of an indoctrination and some other stuff, but I find it fascinating. I feel optimistic that maybe someone can get in there and just shake it up a little bit.
All it's going to take is a little bit to see the effects and the pendulum start to swing back the other way. But I think what's going on with Kellogg's right now is really interesting. They're feeling the heat from Food Babe and Jason Karp and a few others,
Is it good? I know from Laird Superfood, is there, people will say, well, how do I eat healthy on a budget? Like, that's a big one. So I'm sure people say that to you all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Okay, Mark. So what do you say to them?
Well, so if you followed my program, I'm not requiring anybody to eat grass-fed beef. So go to Costco and load up on meat, chicken, and get your protein right. Get vegetables and fruit, and I guarantee you, you're not gonna spend as much as if you're eating fast food every day, or feeding a family of 4 on fast food or whatever it is every day. I mean, at some point, the food budget for a poor family is going to come into play. But I'd love to get food stamps to say no more Coca-Cola with food stamps, no more sugary beverages with food stamps, no more. Here's the list of all the things that you can acquire with food stamps. The rest is on you. Just as a start, and I'd love to see a slow shift away from subsidizing soy and corn to subsidizing regenerative agriculture and the small family farm. And it's possible, but it has to start somewhere. And I think it could start with a pilot project of pick a state that's willing to go all in from their side and match funds or whatever. I think it's exciting times. I think we could be on the cusp of a big shift in away from this obesity-demic that we've had for the last 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, we've never had more information, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
I wonder, sometimes you read a lot of things, and it's like, yes, it's the food, it's the sedentary life, it's the stress, but I also feel like the fact that we don't go outside.
Walk. Back to walking.
Yeah.
Walking is the best thing that somebody who's engaging in an exercise program or beginning a health journey, walking is the single best thing they can do. And then get to the gym and lift some weights, and find some activities that are fun to do that you enjoy doing. It's not that simple. I mean, it's not that difficult, and it doesn't require reading a 300-page tome on longevity. I've written 12 books now.
Is Born to Walk your 12th book?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've written 12 books, and pretty much, if you said, Mark, what do I need to do to be healthy? On one sheet of paper, I can encapsulate everything I've ever written over the last 15 years, 20 years in books on one sheet of paper. Now, the books are all about anecdotes and scientific background and cute stories about how the marathon never was 26.2 miles. It's an artifact of marketing. It was the Olympic Games finishing in front of the Royal Palace in London that extended the original distance of 25 miles to 26.2 miles, or that Phidippides, this heroic legend that was supposedly running back to Athens to tell everybody that we won and dropped dead. Now that never happened. It was a Robert Browning poem that called upon Phidippides, who actually ran 300 miles over the course of 3 days. Anyway, it's all marketing hype.
So what's on the one page?
So the one page is it's basically the primal blueprint, 10 laws, which is eat lots of plants and animals, avoid toxic things, move around a lot at a low level of activity, walk. Lift heavy things twice a week. That's all you need to do. If you want to do more, you can, but twice a week is sort of that minimum effective dose and sweet spot. Sprint once in a while. Again, we talk about sprinting in the book. It's like sprinting is not running metronomically. Sprinting is being strong enough from walking and lifting weights that you could go to the track or on the grass or on the beach or on an elliptical or on a assault bike and do 15 to 20 seconds all out. That's all I'm talking about. Raise the heart rate up there. I would say play, find ways to play, use your brain, do puzzles, learn languages, have a social connection with people around you, a deep social connection with a few people. And okay, there you go. What's left?
Sleep.
Yeah, sleep. That's right.
Recover.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I'm talking about play. I love the speed golf, whether it's like kind of walk briskly from hole to hole, and then you do see people who do play. They play with those backpacks, and they actually kind of do mini jogs from hole to hole. So you give a lot of suggestions in the book on if people don't have ideas about other than walking,
Right.
like all the ways that you can incorporate this play, is there a trend or something you see in nutrition that you go, man, people have it all wrong. They're just not getting it, like, or sort of some kind of program that you think, I'm not sure how this idea gets spread in the psyche.
You have an example?
Well, I sometimes think, like, when people, remember, they were afraid of fat. Mm-hmm. Now it's like healthy fat. Mm-hmm. And I oftentimes see how people are resistant upon, like, seed oils. Yeah. And you'll even see, like, Peter Attia won't really get into, like, what's good or bad about it. And what it is usually is that most processed foods have these seed oils.
Right.
So it seems like where they show up. But if there was sort of something that felt extra important for you that you want to drill down on people, and I do appreciate what you were talking about, the meat, is just to remind them nutritionally what really is kind of cornerstone for you.
Well, so let's talk about protein. I mean, protein is the key macronutrient for most people whether you're trying to lose weight, maintain weight, build muscle, perform athletically. And one of the things that I've seen bandied about over the last year, which I have a problem with personally, is getting 1 gram per pound of body weight. And so if you're a 130 pound woman, 130 grams of protein is a lot of protein to be getting, but it's doable. If you're a 175 pound guy, like I'm 170, I can't eat 170 grams of protein a day.
I'm 180 pounds. Try being 180 pounds.
And thinking you need a gram per pound of body weight. I mean, if you get 100, you're great. You're good, mm-hmm. right? And any more than that, like, I don't know where it's going. I don't know what the effect of it is, and I don't. So, but these are the metrics that are being bandied about that I think are confusing people. Mm-hmm. Like, so it's being overthought in the name of a program, right? I got to get I'm on this person's program. I'm on that person's program. Again, Andy Galpin and Huberman came out mm-hmm. with this thing about. They said, we've after much research and debate, we've found the ideal hydration strategy, and it is what is it? 2 ounces. It's 1 ounce per 30 pounds of body weight every 15 minutes. I'm like, dude, I used to ride Latigo twice without a water bottle, and mm-hmm. I did fine. Thank you very much. And, like, who are we talking about? An elite athlete? Are we talking about Sahara Desert? Are we talking about during a rainstorm in Maine? I mean, all of these, everything has these variables in this equation. And so to come up with one strategy, like 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight, is overthinking what should be a very intuitive process. Back to my original thing, which is, if you just get your protein, if you just be protein conscious on your meals, and what does that look like? It looks like, how much protein can you eat without feeling like you've stuffed yourself or overdone it? Right. I'll order a 12-ounce steak sometimes, and then set half of it aside and go, I can't finish it. I'm done. Yeah. That's enough. And I don't feel if I read this book over here or that one over there, I'd feel like I'd have to choke it down. How do I feel? That's,
Back to how do I feel?
Back to how do I feel?
Yeah. Ingredients in grocery stores. You've made a product that makes it very easy for people. You can read it and you know what's in it. I don't know. Is there like 112 words for the word sugar? And maltodextrin just got slapped big time in the last week. I don't know if you saw that. No, what's going on?
I won't talk about it because it's a company and a friend of mine, and somebody gave him shit for having 400 milligrams of maltodextrin in their product. I'm like, dude, 400 milligrams of maltodextrin. That sounds like a horrible amount of poison.
Right.
Maltodextrin is glucose polymer. It's the most benign form of sugar you can take in. There's no allergens in it. And by the way, 400 milligrams is 0.4 grams, which is 2 calories worth, right, which blows away when you open the packet up. I mean, but people get caught up in, things like the minutia of these and not looking at the, so back to ingredients. Yeah, you and I, we've been through this in our respective companies. Like, how do you What sort of gum are you going to use that's not going to offend at least somebody, right?
Yeah.
You got to use gum somewhere, but
Yeah.
acacia, guar gum, carrageenan, well, a little bit of carrageenan. If a low Dalton it comes from kelp, but high Dalton carrageenan they use to induce colon cancer in mice. Well, oh my God, what are we? It's how the average consumer can discern and figure this stuff out. It's a tough call.
It is, and that's why I always think just keep it simple. So, last question: do you have a daily? And when I say daily, means most days. It doesn't have to be every day. Do you have some kind of ritual or act that you do that really kind of sets you right for your day? Or do you just on the fly? Is it on? Because like for me personally, I do kind of. I don't want to say I'm not the most perky person in the morning, and so for example, Laird wakes up ready to go. But before I put my feet on the floor, I say to myself, "It's really whatever story you're going to put on it." So you know what? It's a great day.
Yeah.
And I just do that before my feet hit, because I know otherwise left up to my own internal climate, I might be a little bit serious, and then I can't pull it out. It's like I start the morning like that, and then I see Laird, then he reacts, and it becomes this whole chain of events.
Right.
So I'm just like, you know what? I'm alive. It's a great day.
Yeah.
Because you are very consistent, Mark. I see you all the time. It's like you are one of the most consistent kind of, let's do it. We can do it. Isn't this great? No big deal person. Is there something that you do specifically that helps keep you oriented this way?
Not really. I mean, I would say just in the last 10 years, I get up in the morning, my little exercise there is, if today's the last day, I've had a great life. I've done a lot of things that I never thought I'd do. I have amazing kids. If today's the last day, and whether or not that even means like, if today's the day I die, if today's the day I choose not to go to work and say, fuck it, I'm done, it won't matter. Because I have all this other stuff that I'm so proud of and happy for. So if today's the last day, it'll be okay, but today's not the last day. And so that's the next thought is, I get to choose into each day that way. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've accomplished a lot. And I know Paloova is your next baby. Is you still you dream a lot? You make dreams.
Oh, yeah.
So with Paloova, is there something else that you're sort of kind of dreaming about creating?
Within Paloova, or just
or
after Paloova?
Yeah, is there some? Is like what's been turning you on? Because I hear you say play a lot more than I've heard you say in the past.
Yeah. No, I mean I've got another book in mind. I'm always working on a book, and that's my I think my self-indulgence to take a topic that I think I know a lot about, and I've felt a lot about, and I've thought a lot about over the years. And then, translate that into a storyline and a sort of a philosophical point of view that might be interesting to some people. So I have another book in mind. But I think Paloova is like, first of all, I think this is going to be, there's a 5-year plan for Paloova and a 10-year plan for Paloova. So by then, in 10 years, I'll be 81, and maybe I'll come up with some other thing to do. Don used to always have something going on, right?
Yeah, we have Laird had a very best friend that Mark was also good friends with for many years. How long did you know Don?
Since '83.
Right, yeah. More than 30 years. Don Wildman, and I think that is the interesting thing, is part of staying excited about life, besides these relationships that we have, is having these pursuits.
Yeah.
No matter how old we are.
I mean, that's really, I'm always going to be building or inventing or creating or doing or writing something, and I'm right now, Mark's Daily Apple has been offline for a year due to a hacking incident, and it's crushing me because it was, it was an
outlet for you.
A lot of people. It was an outlet for a lot of people. So I'm thinking about starting a paywall now where I can really get down and dirty on some of the stuff that I think about. So we're setting that sort of thing up. But again, that's just because I feel compelled to. I've used that term in the past, like what is it that drives me to create a food company and then create a shoe company? When I see something that I think needs fixing in the world, I feel compelled to do something about it, and that's kind of what's driven me.
Well, I always appreciate seeing you, Mark. And your book is Born to Walk, and the shoes are Paloova. If you want to check them out, that's paloova.com, Peluva. And is there any other invitations that you want to make to people? Like maybe, I feel like people really get their ass kicked and they're down and they're tired and there's a lot of noise. Like technology is so incredible. Like people can reach out directly to you, communicate with you, and all of these kind of opening doors. But there's another side of technology, which, it is feels like a loud noise for a lot of people. Is there any kind of last invitation that feels important to remind people? Because you have lived a minute.
Yeah. I would go back to this concept we started with, which is what matters most is how you feel. How you feel about your health, how you feel about your life, how you feel about your relationships, how you feel about your productivity, how you feel about your contribution. And there's some hedonist aspects to this, like, how do you feel about the meal you just ate or the workout you just did or the online role-playing game you just won or whatever. It really comes down, all that really matters, all of this nebulous stuff on the outside is just contemplated to improve how you feel. They're just not saying it that way. So you improve your blood work, you lose weight, you get fitter, you increase your VO2 max. It all comes back to how do you feel? I just get there early. I'm just like, okay, how do I feel? I don't really want to know the metrics. As if my VO2 max is great, but I feel shitty, it doesn't matter that my VO2 max is great. So I want people to really get deep into the awareness of like, okay, this is an amazing life. You got 2 feet. You're moving around this planet. You can have all these experiences and have all these relationships. How does that make you feel? And if it doesn't make you feel amazing, then let's look at what it would take to do that.
Mark Sisson, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So thanks again for joining me and listening to the Gabby Reece Show. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a conversation. And if anything showed up today that you find would be helpful to someone you know, pass it along and make sure to share with us what really resonated and stood out for you in this conversation. Thanks again for joining us. Keep going, and I'll see you next time.